Welcome to the Alpha Build Podcast.
That's not how you start a podcast, Andy.
This is the Alpha Build Podcast.
That's not how you start. We already talked about this.
We're talking about stealth
Use
games.
your grown man voice.
We're talking about stealth games, so I'm trying to be quiet.
That's stupid.
You shut up. Anyway, this is the Alpha Build Podcast, and we're talking about stealth games today. This is the Alpha Build Podcast, and today we are talking about stealth games. If you didn't know, Thief recently came out, and we're kind of doing this to honor that / give us a good reason to make fun of it. So today, we're going to be covering what is a stealth game, what makes a good one, and why Thief is maybe tote butts. Yeah.
Just for reference, I wish I had already played it so I could understand more.
I'll explain it to you if you want later.
Oh, I'm sure you will. But I mean, if I would have watched someone else play it, or I would have played it myself, it'd be a little bit more useful. But play plenty of other stealth games.
Sometimes being ignorant is fun
because it gets you to give them your money.
Ignorance. The less you know.
The less you know, the better.
We need a little star, like the more you know, but we'll just have it go the opposite direction.
See, this is completely different, not the same. Don't sue.
Yeah.
Totally unrelated.
Okay.
No, so if you didn't know, Thief came out recently, and Thief, this is kind of a remaking of the series and trying to reboot it, so to speak. And it's come out, and it's gotten a mix of reviews, some bad and some not as bad, but not as many wonderful reviews. To be honest, I've watched a lot of gameplay footage, but really our only one here that's played it is Mr. Kadamus.
Yeah, I bought it and played it day one, sadly.
Yeah, and he has complained to me in depth about it. But why don't we delve into that a little bit? So we not to get too much into the actual narrative, because that's not our focus here necessarily. But why don't you give us a brief little checklist of what would Thief's major failings in your opinion?
Okay. I feel two things mainly.
Okay.
Plot being one of them, but we won't delve into that. I felt the plot was really pretty uninspired in it, and it doesn't make much sense. And the other thing is it does certain stealth mechanics so well, but then completely fails in others. And one example of that is when you're like stealthing around in the shadows, the game is a lot of fun to play. But when you get caught, it's not fun to play. Immediately becomes not fun.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with that context-sensitive button.
So the interesting thing about Thief is that the first Thief kind of set the bar in a way for what a stealth game is, and it did that alongside a couple of other games, like Metal Gear and another one that I can't remember.
Deus Ex.
But this was back in the 90, like 96 or something like that.
It was a long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, but it kind of defined what a stealth game should be. So when Thief came out, everyone had some pretty high expectations of it. But I guess the issue is maybe hopes were a little high because when it comes right down to it, like a true stealth game is kind of a niche product, don't you think?
Yeah, it definitely is, especially in a game like Thief. There is only one way to play it. Combat is not an option. That's never an option. It's always better to run away than fight. So yeah, it is a true stealth game.
Yeah, and I guess in that regard, it's pretty true to the original Thief, where you didn't really want to pick a fight in the first.
Oh
Thief
God,
either.
no. But the thing is, it does it in the same way, and that's my problem. So a Thief is a game that came out a long time ago, and the combat is wonky. But I mainly blame that of them not designing combat properly at that time, either because they didn't want to or they didn't know how to. I don't know which way it is. And that's fine if that's what they want the game to be. In this game, they made it just as wonky as the original Thief, but a game that's made in 2014.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people say that the wonkiness was intentional because it was their way of discouraging you from fighting because they wanted to make that not a viable option. They didn't want to make it an assassin simulator.
Yeah, and I don't blame them for that. My problem comes is that if you're not going to offer me a way to fight, then you need to give me complete control of how I escape. And that leads me to my biggest problem is it doesn't let you do that. because that space button is not a jump button. It's a content sectionate. Oh God, Freudianism. Anyway, it's a context sensitive button. So I can only jump when I'm looking at a thing that allows me to jump on it, and that they've preordained that I'm allowed to jump there. Okay. And there's a lot of times where I should have been able to jump to safety and I couldn't because the game told me I couldn't. And that's not fair.
Yeah, it makes it hard when a lot of your games about sneaking around and being stealthy when you're a little bit railroaded by your options.
So is this truly a problem with the game, or is this a problem with controls?
That's what I'm saying. It's a mixture of both. It's
they
didn't design
I don't know.
properly.
Is Thief a port from console?
It technically is, yes. And you can tell that context sensitive button is definitely a console artifact that didn't get removed. And that is a problem. But the sad part is the rest of the PC port's great. Like, the options menu is fantastic. They have customizable difficulty. I mean, that's incredible, but that's on all of them.
I'm kind of surprised, though, that you are playing it with a keyboard, so it doesn't support a controller.
No, it does. Honestly, it's still better with the keyboard and mouse on the PC port.
Yeah, and I noticed, like, with Dishonored, you had a lot more precision with the keyboard and mouse.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
If I was going to play Thief, I would almost be tempted to go that route as well.
Yeah, same here. It's even though because there's a lot of aiming, because the game requires you to use a lot of specialty arrows, and really, it's just so much easier using a mouse.
Yeah, and I think I've been reading a lot about this, and a lot of people are talking about how they try to kind of go that Dishonored route where it feels like you have all these different options, except each one feels very
samey.
Yeah, like you don't have a lot of variation to go one way or the other.
Like for instance, Eban, knowing that you haven't played Thief or Dishonored, I kind of want to give you a background, and for anyone who hasn't played both of them, in Dishonored, in a mission structure, you had probably 3 or 4 different ways you could traverse the level to get where you need to go.
And some of them only opened up after you took certain abilities.
Yeah. And so, but at the same time, not only did it give you options like that, but you could complete the mission in multiple ways as well. There were non-lethal options for every mission in that game. There were lethal and then, the normal. So it's everything about the game was freedom.
Yeah. Along those same lines, though, you also didn't have to really be stealthy in that game.
No, but what my point is that when it comes to Dishonored, the one thing Dishonored does well is it doesn't limit the player at all. It lets the player decide how he wants to play. You can, when I played Dishonored, I played it stealth.
That's the problem then with it, is that, some of these games, it's like maybe people shouldn't be making true stealth games anymore. Maybe it should have more of you have the option, like the game is designed to be played stealth, but you have an option to play it not stealth. So that way the mechanics work better for when you eventually screw up, which is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Dishonored does well, is you can fight back in Dishonored very well. You cannot in Thief. And, honestly, if you want to do a true stealth game, honestly, I'm for it, but it shouldn't be a AAA game because you're not going to make the money on it. It's
a niche market of people that want to go around and be only stealthy and that be their only way of game, because that's the people that want you to enforce that kind of a world. They're the ones that are like saying, hit me harder, please. they're kind of
I think you can get away with it, and I think you could still make a AAA title. It's just you have to put better mechanics into the game to encourage that or to force it. So you got to make it where either the second you get detected, you automatically... So like when you played on the different difficulties for Metal Gear, it's like you could up the settings that you had to play stealth, where you got even detected once, it was game over and you had to restart back from a checkpoint or like a save point.
Honestly, I think you could fix all problems in Thief in terms of its mechanics only with changing how the space button works. And it's like in Dishonored, when you get caught, you can zip away really easily. Yeah. Especially on the harder difficulties, you had to. So it's like they gave you the mechanics that worked well for escaping. In Thief, they do not give you that option.
Well, and I think this brings up an interesting point of in Dishonored, being stealthy is really a question of agility. How fast can you move around? How quickly can you get in and out? Historically, Thief has never been an agility kind of escapist game. It's been the kind of game where you wait in the shadows and you try to be as silent as possible, and you're stealthy because you're not being detected.
Yes.
And I think if you're trying to be true to that kind of Thief, if you're trying to be true to the kind of Thief where you're successful because you're moving slowly and not making a lot of noise, that inherently is not that exciting to a lot of markets. To some people, yes, but that inherent means of being stealthy is not as attractive.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm one of those weirdos because there were times when I would watch troop movements in Thief and be really ecstatic when I pulled off something the first time. But it comes down to another problem with Thief, is that the level design doesn't understand what type of game it is. So in Dishonored, they would put you in tight hallways sometimes. A lot of the maps were open, but sometimes there were tight choke points that you had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually you would get caught, because every human makes a mistake. You'd get caught. And the game knew that, and that's why the escape mechanisms were so good. In Thief, if you play some of the older games, which I did recently just to prepare for this, all the maps are open. Because with a game as slow and methodical, you have to give them room to move.
Yeah.
But in the new Thief, they said everything is a closed corridor. Even the world open map is a series of corridors and not an open map.
Yeah.
So it's like they didn't understand what game they were making in some regards, when they designed it.
And I guess as a quick disclaimer, just to not to excuse a game that kind of has that kind of a failure, but Thief did have a little bit of a trouble halfway through the development where they kind of switched teams, and it's easy sometimes to lose your vision as you're developing a game when you start losing key members of your team.
I kind of want to make a counter argument to that,
Yep.
and it's kind of the Penny Arcade argument. I think I heard it from them first, but from their point of view, the consumer really has no reason to care about that.
Oh
The
yeah,
game is either good or it isn't.
Yeah, that's why I don't think it's a
time.
good reason to excuse, but I think in terms of understanding maybe why there was this kind of lack of vision, it's a good explanation as to why, but that doesn't mean you should go out and buy Thief because that makes it better.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the interesting thing is a lot of people will now there's been so many good stealth games out recently. You've had Mark of the Ninja, you've had Dishonored, of course, you've had Deus Ex Human Revolution that does a great job at it. Monaco is even, a lot of people have fun with that game. So the stealth genre kind of has exploded in popularity, and I say explode, but even if it's not a pure stealth game, you're seeing a lot more elements of stealth start finding its way into other games. I mean, Skyrim has a lot of its own stealth mechanics, and there's just like almost every game nowadays is giving you a way to be stealthy because that is a mode that some people like to play through.
Yeah, and I especially this kind of gets in the argument I think I brought up with you a couple of days ago, is kind of the difference between 2D and 3D, and why I like one better than the other.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
So 2D stealth versus 3D stealth.
Do you have an opinion, Eban? Have you played much of either type to be able? I know you played Mark of the Ninja, right?
So I played through Mark of the Ninja, and I played through Deus Ex as fairly sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
Not like completely. I was more non-lethal kill when I played through than necessarily sneaky, but it kind of plays together better that way.
Yeah. Okay. I was kind of making the argument that the more I play stealth games, the more I like 2D better than 3D stealth games. Because I really feel at the heart of a stealth game, you need to have the ability to understand what's happening around you fully. And I like being able to see the whole plane, when I'm playing a stealth game.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was my opinion, is I preferred 2D over 3D. And I was just curious if you had an opinion one way or the other. Either.
So what you're saying is you just like it when it's easy. You like being
no,
able to have
like
your
Mark
two
of the Ninja
dimensions
is
and your
not. Mark of the Ninja is
being
not
able to see
easy
everything.
game. Okay.
I'm just gonna talk over you.
I know. Mark of the Ninja was not an easy game.
Maybe not for you.
Yeah, right.
Gold, didn't you have an easy time with it?
Yes. No comment on the grounds that it might get me. Yes.
That's like Kadamus is going to be the one editing all this footage anyway, so he's just going to change it around so that we all agree.
No,
with him.
I'm too lazy to edit all this stuff. So
you should just get a section of us just saying yes and just put them next to each other.
I'm very careful
Really
not to say the Y word for that very reason.
I don't think it matters whether one version or another is easier. I can definitely see, because the thing is, the argument is a stealth game is supposed to be more thought out. It's not supposed to be reaction based. I mean, there is a certain amount of reaction to it, but it's supposed to be you examine your surroundings, make a decision of what you want to try to do, and then the reaction part is actually of putting that plan into motion. And I can totally see where when you have that perspective of not being in first person, that it makes it play better towards that kind of game, because you can see more of what's like. You can't see far in the distance, but most games prevent you from seeing far anyways. So it gives you that ability to look around corners and stuff and see what else you need to take into account and deal with.
Yeah, I felt Mark of the Ninja did that extremely well. Even though it obscured your vision with blurring, it still allowed you to do that. And I felt that made it a better experience.
Well, and they gave you tons of input, like with the little noise sound waves and with the lighting. They did a great job all around in giving you the ability to see what was going on, but also understand like what was going on in terms of the sound and the lighting that your character was kind of being exposed to.
Yeah. And like a good indicator is that, I mean, that's technically also in Dishonored too. It'd play a noise and it would flash an on-screen icon at you. You
Yeah,
know?
but it's, and I think Dishonored is it's one it does give you some heads up. But like sometimes you do something and someone behind you would notice. And like you said, with 2D, you can make sure that everybody within your range is kind of fitting within the scope of your plan.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to is the other thing is for like the other problem with Thief I had was auditory. The audio of it.
Uh-huh.
And that came down to when you would get caught, it would just start playing this really loud music over everything. But there were times the enemy didn't know where I was, but the music would play. And so I'd start running for my life and actually make them see where I am. Like that happened quite a lot.
And this is
So
the argument.
is that you misinterpreting the audio cue or the audio cue not being good? So is the audio cue supposed to just alert you that someone is close to your position instead of necessarily telling you that someone's seen you for sure?
It's supposed to alert them that something has happened. But let me give you an idea that kind of answers that question for you. I once got that audio cue from an enemy that was in an opposite building than the one I was in.
So that's just poor programming because
Correct.
It's based on distance instead of actual ability
Well,
to
maybe
have
he
the
heard
option to
something.
detect you. It's like I'm standing right behind him and the audio cue's playing because he could turn around at any second and see me versus there's like I'm inside a box and completely surrounded on all sides and there's no way that even if he looks directly at me, you can see me.
Yeah, and there's a review on Polaris about Thief. They actually liked Thief, and I think they're wrong, but whatever. Different people. But they actually have it on video where crossing a certain line on the map would make the music start playing even though no one was following him. And then the second he backed up a pixel, it would go away. It's just bad audio design in general.
Yeah. I guess that brings up another question then is in a stealth game, should you be able to get away quickly? If there's no consequence to getting caught, is it really that good of a stealth game?
Well, no, it can be. And I think the example is Thief. Really, the way you should play is if you get caught, you reload a save, and that's how you play Thief. And that's what I did. I would oftentimes allow myself to get killed so I could try it again.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to agree with you. I think Dishonored is a different type of stealth game. It is a stealth game, but it's kind of the whole point is they give you powers to make you really to just be you can move at any point really quickly and even vertically.
Yeah, I think honestly, saying a game is stealth is almost not sufficient anymore because I feel like different stealth games are really satisfying different needs that the player has, and really you can break stealth down into a couple different things, like your agility is stealth kind of mindset. Like I think Dishonored is definitely you have your stealth because you can get around really quickly.
Yeah, and it's
I think
definitely more of a
Batman falls
reactionary
into the
game
same category.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's able to climb up in the rafters and do all his little tricks and jump down and punch you in the face. But like the stealth you kind of see in the Batman games is kind of attributed to agility.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Thief, which is more of you're being able because you're quiet and you're patient, and because you have some magical powers, you're able to be stealthy. And then you start getting into like some other ones where it's like you're stealthy because of knowledge that you have. And some of the games double dip into this, but like because of the special tools that you get, like Splinter Cell, you could get all your infrared viewing, and you can see where the enemies are, and because you know where they are, you're able to be stealthy. And the same could be said for Dishonored.
They've actually changed that formula recently as well. Like the new Splinter Cells are more reactionary in agility than anything.
Yeah,
and they've changed, and I feel it's for the better. I think I'm just more akin to the agility type of stealth. I think it's more fun because it's more involved and it's less waiting in shadows and dark places.
Well, I think honestly, one of the reasons why Dishonored is so great is because it allows you to be stealthy in all of those ways. You can choose to sit around and wait for people to pass your path, and you can wait for the perfect moments.
Yeah, and it gives you awards based on ghosting a level.
Yeah, you can choose to bamf around the map and just be like, I'm here, and I'm over here, and I'm over here. And you can do that. Or you can even get the special abilities that allow you to see where all the people are, and you can kind of use that knowledge wherever they are to get by them. Mm-hmm. So it allows you to be stealthy in multiple ways. Whereas from what I've been hearing and seeing from everybody with this newest iteration of Thief, you can be stealthy, but only in the one way that they want you to be stealthy.
Which, I don't blame them for because that is Thief's formula. That's just the way they're made. And they were trying to be faithful to the originals, and that is what it entails. But
so that's
at
the
the
question,
same time,
right? Should they have gone a different direction instead of trying to like relive to the old one and screw it up?
So. I think so.
Yeah, because last episode we were just bashing BioShock for unnecessarily carrying things forward.
Yeah, And really, it comes down to the simple of look at what Human Revolution did for Deus Ex. I played the original Deus Ex and I really enjoyed it. And I played Human Revolution and enjoyed it for a different reason. They're both good games. And it's a matter of I would have rather had them put their own stamp on it and not be adhered to these old, rules of engagement.
Yeah, because now this is where you do have to be careful, because if you change things too much, it stops becoming a Thief game, and it just needs a different name. Because part of you wants to have that Thief name because that name has a fan base already established. So you don't want to deviate too far from that. You do want to make your fans happy in that regard if you're going to keep that Thief name and try and make it a Thief title. So you're kind of expected to carry certain things forward. But like we've been saying already, if you're going to make it a AAA title, you need to make it enjoyable to a AAA audience.
Yeah.
Saying that, you just make me think of Demon Souls versus Dark Souls. I didn't play Demon Souls, so I don't know how similar they really are, but if they are as similar as I think they are, it doesn't make any difference if you change the name, even if it still ends up being the same general kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can move your audience over.
Yeah, I agree. And a good example is I hate to keep saying this name, but Dishonored.
Yeah.
But when they made that game, they said, you know what? We are making a new game. It has these old ideas, but we are very heavily basing it off Thief, in terms of some things. Mm-hmm. And they basically said what their inspirations were, and a lot of people flocked to it because of what they said, and not because it had Thief on the title.
Yeah.
And I mean, and Dishonored is a huge seller for Bethesda right now because of it, and because of its quality. I mean, it's very, very high in quality.
Yeah, and I feel like from what I've been watching of Thief, there's no reason not to give you, for example, better ability to escape. I mean, you're supposed to be a master thief.
You're supposed to be a master thief. You should be able to escape.
Yeah, so unless I've never had to escape before because I'm so good at stealing. Oh no.
Well, the other problem I had is like at one point they make you buy thieving tools from a vendor on the street in an alley. And I'm like, wait, he's a master thief. Shouldn't he have these tools? Like, shouldn't I already have them?
Immersion eroding.
I never thought I've always just used my mind instead of tools before.
I'm more of a thief in the regards that I do social engineering instead of using items to pick locks.
Yeah.
Now, I guess so. In this question, let's talk about a game that maybe isn't meant to be a stealth game, but that has a very enjoyable stealth experience, which is Skyrim.
Have you played Skyrim with the stealth mechanic on?
Oh yeah, and this is where you start.
I have played very little of Skyrim. I think I've watched more people play it because I still haven't purchased it. It's on the list. Don't tear me a new one.
Well, I just don't think you're going to be invited back to this podcast.
but I play Fallout 3.
That counts.
That kind of has stealth.
No, the stealth mechanic isn't so bad in that. It's not great, but it's not bad.
But the point is, it comes down to player enjoyment out of the stealth mechanic. I think in Skyrim, after you level it up sufficiently, you become a god almost. Because you just crouch and everyone's like, where do you go? And it gets ridiculous.
I can't see him 10 feet in front of me.
Yeah, but really that's the point of an Elder Scrolls game, though. They want to make you feel like a god, really.
Yeah. Well, and this brings up a good point, though, is like with a lot of these stealth games, what people are really looking for is not to be a hidden thief, but they want to be able to exercise power from the darkness and be able to be like, "Wacha! I was hiding the whole time, and I killed you from behind." And they want to be able to have that jump out and aha moment instead of just slinking away into the shadows.
They don't get the satisfaction from getting through the game without anyone ever seeing them. They only get the satisfaction when they let the person think that they're okay, and then they pop out and murder their face.
There should be a moment in Thief where you can steal something at the very end, like you have a dramatic, like, haha, like you just appear on the balcony and they're all like, oh, it's him, and then you jump away dramatically with a swirl of your cape. That's what I want to see. Because then that would be like, if you get that special cinematic, if you did it completely stealthy, I feel like that would add a kind of good amount of reward.
I don't know. Think? It's hard because, I mean, the only thing that then people do add to games.
You do.
Is achievements to reward playing a game completely stealth or a section of a game completely stealth and not getting detected.
Yeah.
And like achievements are okay, but I feel like if you're trying to give someone a real incentive, and if you're trying to embrace that fan base that really likes to maybe just slink through it, like you do want to kind of get that acknowledgement that I did this my way and it was a legitimate way to play, and like there is a little bit of less of a payoff that way. But like to get like a special cinematic or something because of it, I feel like is a little bit of a nod to the player, like you've done good.
You done good, son.
We're gonna make you play through the entire game twice to add additional content to get this extra ending.
Yeah. I just think it'd be
That's
cool.
my only problem with it. I don't think it's bad, and I think for some people it'll work great. But that's my only beef is when people start doing that to pad content, and then they use that as a legitimate reason for why their game's so much shorter. Well, they got to play through it twice to see the other alternate ending.
Well, and I don't think you have to end it differently, but just like, for example, Thief, just like with Dishonored and like with many stealth games, because they're modular. You have a level, you're done with it, you move on. It's not like an open world kind of feel for most of the stealth games because they don't work very well that way.
Yeah.
But at the end of each of your little missions or your if you had a little cinematic that varied from play mode to play mode, like you don't have to play the whole game. Like it's just if I snuck through the entire manor house undetected, stole the painting, snuck out, and then had some cinematic where I saw them all baffled into what it's missing, but no one came in. Like I would love that. I would like that's what I want to have if I'm gonna do that. I don't want to just like walk into my house and be like, oh, I guess I stole it. That was good.
Yeah.
Because when you kill
Where
people,
did this come
you get
from?
to see them being like, who are you? Whoa! There's lots of reaction. The world reacts to you when you're actually killing them. I mean, which is expected.
But you want to get a bigger reaction in the form of a cutscene from when they don't even know you ever were there.
Yeah, you'd like to see, and I know in real life, you're not, if you steal something, you're not going to get to see them doing it. But it'd be nice as in a video game, since you have this ability, to then give that player that payoff to be like, you snuck through so awesomely, and now everyone is baffled, and look at how confused they are. And you left your little calling card, maybe, and everyone's just like, oh my goodness, this is so good.
Well, like, a game could do something like that, where then they reward the player with something. I don't like, and that's the problem. Like, how do you do it without breaking the game mechanics? And maybe you don't. Maybe you do break the game mechanics, and that's what encourages people to play that way.
Yeah.
Well, Dishonored
You
did
give
that.
them some reward, like where you earn credits because it was like you were so stealthy and so good at this that no one knew it was you. So you get some bonus that you can spend to get stuff to make something else easier later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Deus Ex did that in the Ghost achievement for each level. You got more XP for doing that.
Yeah, but the difference was that made you level faster to make up for the fact that you weren't getting the EXP for killing people. It just,
Yeah, exactly.
That really just balanced the game. That wasn't really like,
An unfair
oh, well,
advantage,
you
yeah.
did it this way. Here's this to make the game a lot easier. That was just like, we want to keep you on pace with the person who went through and decided to be a mass murderer and murder every single person. I'm thinking more of like, you're talking like balance and stuff for like stealth versus non-stealth gameplay. I think of Metro or Metro Last Light.
Mhm.
Because if depending on the difficulty you're playing on, with the lack of ammo, it really encourages the player to play stealthy through areas because you're going to run out of ammo if you don't.
Yeah. And I think
And it's like, I
there's-
like that kind of stealth. Now, granted, someone might complain and say, well, it's forcing you. And into a regard, it is, especially if you're playing on harder difficulties. It's forcing you to play stealthy because you don't have the ammo to spare to murder everyone.
Well, and that's the argument I think that we keep coming back to is it's a stealth game. You're supposed to play it as stealthily. But if you're trying to sell it as a AAA, you need to appeal to everybody. You need to be able to start making it where maybe you can always take on everybody and murder everyone. I mean, since we're talking about stealth games, I mean, Assassin's Creed kind of falls into this category a little bit.
No.
At least
No.
this is
I
kind
would
of the
agree.
this is the idea though, is that in Assassin's Creed you're supposed to be all sneaky and stalking up on people, but in essence you can kill everybody. Like you don't have to be an assassin. You're just a crazy one-man war machine that will wipe out entire armies, and that's just who you are. And that's kind of what everybody wants out of every stealth hero, is the ability to kill everybody if they want to, at least on the AAA level.
So I know Cad's played, and I don't know if you've played Gorlock. Have you ever played Tenchu Wrath of Heaven?
No.
Oh.
I wish
It was
it sounds good.
It is there's been multiples of them, but the one I'm particularly thinking of was the PS2 release. And that was a game that rewarded you for stealth kills, but at the same time, in regards to a certain aspect, was a stealth game, but not.
Uh-huh.
So like your regular combat with stuff was terrible. You were like even matched with almost anything you fought. A few things might have actually been a little bit better than you at straight combat. So the game rewarded you for sneaking around, doing distractions and other things to get an advantage to go in and do instant kills.
Okay.
And you wanted to kill a certain number because that helped you unlock additional abilities to make the rest of the game easier.
Okay.
But you still had objectives like get to this point. So if you could get to the point without killing anyone, you could do it. and the game then gave you ratings based on how you performed. And it's like, if you never got detected, you got like, assassin or ninja or like some better rating. And if you just like kind of walked around murdering people haphazardly, you got a rating of thug. So,
Yeah, the only complaint I have about Tenchu, though, now that I'm older and thinking back on it, is that they forced you into boss battles continuously with that shitty fighting ability.
no, but I mean, you had plenty of stuff that you could get, like items to give you back food and other stuff, and there were a few ways to like kind of like work around it with items. But I mean, that was the thing that I liked about it, was you had items to use, and obviously some items, depending on your gameplay, were much better than other ones. But it still gave you a wide option, and you could pick up more stuff while you're going along throughout the level, even though you could only take so much with you. And the thing too was the reward is if you got a better ranking, you got more items as a reward at the end.
Yeah, you did.
So, there are games out there that have stealth elements or are supposed to be oriented towards stealth play that do a good job of rewarding the player for being stealthy.
So I guess the big question of the night that we're going to come down to is, if you're making a stealth game, do you have to give the player all these options, or can you be a little hard-handed? I guess that's probably the wrong phrase, but anyway,
Okay. Yeah.
Can you play hardball and force them to play stealth the way you want them to play stealth? Is that a legitimate way to do it, or
Absolutely.
in this modern age where you're trying to make games to appeal to as many people as possible,
Well,
do you always have to
that
give
last
people
part,
the option
no.
to get out any way they want?
Yeah, if you're going for a AAA, it has to appeal to everybody, then that's an obvious no.
Yeah.
But the point
I don't
is
think
that
so. I think you can get away making a AAA and it not appeal to everyone.
I think Thief's a good example of why it doesn't.
But
aside from its design issues, the game requires a lot of patience that a lot of people will not use in that game. And even me playing it, and I love stealth games like that, it requires so much patience sometimes that I'm like, okay, this is really boring. And that's for someone who likes stealth games. And even then I was like, this is too tedious for my taste. And it's a game that's hardline. I just don't think it would ever sell. You'd be really hard to convince me otherwise.
Yeah, I think you get to the area where it's a niche of people that want to be dealt with harshly by their game for deviating from the stealth way that they're supposed to be playing. Don't get me wrong, I think you can get a lot of satisfaction out of that, and that there's ways you can do to make it better. Like, for example, Monaco is a good game in my opinion. It's a stealth game technically, but I was playing it with Kadamus the other day, and I was just running around.
Yeah, we were just running around.
There was no way for them to enforce me to be stealthy, and I was completing the levels just fine. So it's like almost like being stealthy became an option. And the same applies to Dishonored. Being stealthy is an option in Dishonored, and it's not a requirement to that stealth game. And I'm trying to think of a good game that I played where I had to be stealthy or die or not complete the game, And I'm trying to think, and I can't think of a good one. I guess Mark of the Ninja. Well, no, see, Mark of the Ninja you don't have to, because like Mark of the Ninja, you can specifically take certain traits that let you be a better killer.
Yeah, but I think there's sections of the game though that still force you to, or else it's like nigh impossible to get through.
Yeah, like the end of the game when they take your blade.
Yeah, there's a couple things in it where it's kind of like, hey, you should practice being stealthier better because now this is gonna suck.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while since I played it, but I do remember it being a little bit that way. And I don't know. I guess it's a problem of like, it comes down to knowing your target audience, and you have to have mechanics in the game that work correctly. So either you don't force it, but you reward it, or you just have the mechanics in the game that work correctly. And to be honest, it's like your biggest problem with Thief isn't necessarily how long some of the stuff might take for you to get through stealthily. It's the fact that one mechanic in the game does not work the way it should.
Yeah, and that makes it a terrible experience.
Yeah, single mechanics can sink ships.
Oh yeah, it comes down to you have to have good mechanics or the rest doesn't matter, usually.
Well,
So.
I think we've reached a consensus then.
Okay.
That,
is it break time yet?
Thief is kind of butts, but if you like that kind of being forced to play a certain way and having no other options and that kind of, if you enjoy having bad times, maybe Thief's for you. I don't know.
Yeah. It's not for me, that's for sure.
But there's a lot of other games that do stealth in ways that give you more options. And if you like more options, which a lot of people do, that's maybe the way to go. And if you haven't played Dishonored yet, you really should.
And Mark of the Ninja.
Yeah, Mark of the Ninja is excellent.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think. Well, one last thing I guess I want to bring back up. We talked about it a little bit, but 2D versus 3D.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mark of the Ninja, I think was a good example for 2D stealth. But I can't think of any other good examples because Monaco, I don't think is a good 2D stealth game. At least in the sense that it's not like I don't have to be stealthy. I can just run through it like a crazy person.
I would argue that Metal Gear is a 2D stealth game. Even though there's 3D elements within it, you still play from the majority of the game from like an overview, especially like the older ones.
Okay.
And looking around.
Yeah, you usually play from
so
a top
plan
down.
stuff, and then with the field of view of characters to know where you need to go, where you need to stand, where you need to hide.
So okay, so are we saying then that like if you have stealth in games, sometimes it's easier if you present the stealth mechanics in a, I don't want to say a simplified way, but in a way that it gives you more information more readily.
Correct. I think the problem comes down to it's really hard to make a stealth game that translates really well. That's like a pure stealth game. None of this, oh, you could play it this way or that way if it's a first person.
I think okay, so I have an idea. I'm going to throw this out here. This is my thesis that I'm going to throw down on you.
Okay.
Let's say that in most modern AAA gaming, there's a power fantasy that people want to fulfill, and so a lot of your characters in those AAA titles, they want to be powerful, strong, kill anybody, no one can take them down. That's what you see in a stealth game. Your hero isn't necessarily a power fantasy. He still has power in his own way. He still has skills. Almost a skill fantasy, I guess, in a way, because you have all these abilities. But in order to simulate that in your player, it's not about giving them the ability to kill everybody. It's about giving them the ability to evade everybody, and that involves giving them information about everything that they need to know in order to do that.
Yeah, which a master thief would do and actively seek out.
So maybe the issue here then is, in order to make a good stealth game, you need to be able to empower that character as a stealth player would need to be empowered, not necessarily as a mighty warrior god would need to be empowered.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just thinking about it because I'm looking through my list of games, and ones I think are stealth and ones I think are not. And the ones that I think play more to the extent of true stealth all don't really play in first person. It's all the ones where it's like they have stealth mechanics in the game, but they give you the option to play kind of like run and gun. All tend to be the ones that are first person.
Yeah, and I think in general, if you're trying to convey information, it's a lot easier to do it in 2D, which means as a stealth game, when you're trying to, your way of making the character empowered is to give them information. 2D enables that much more easily. Not that it can't be done.
I'm not even
in 3D.
thinking necessarily 2D, because a couple of the ones I'm thinking of, and maybe there is a bit more 2D to the aspect. Some of them are third person too, where it's just that extra, because of the way that the camera sits back or the way you can manipulate the camera, it gives you more insight without revealing your character.
Right.
Gotcha.
Where it's like when you're that first person, you know that for me to see what's going on, my head is exposed. Everyone can see my head.
Everyone can see your head goal.
It's huge.
It is huge. Glad we're on the same page. Okay, so we've been talking about Thief and sneaking around and all that stuff for quite a while now. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to make our own little stealthy games out of the thin air, because that's what we do for you people on the internets. That's what we do.
That's not so bad.
Shut up, Kadamus.
You shut up.
Anyway, we'll be back after this short break. Welcome back to the Alpha Build podcast, where we will now be engaged in an activity that we have not done before, which is we're going to do a kind of a round robin game development. Because, I mean, obviously, you've heard us talk about stealth games for a while, so we're obviously pros at making stealth games.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
So we're going to be kind of going around and building onto a stealth game. Each of us is going to throw forth an idea and start building up this game. And we're just going to keep going around and adding on some ideas until we have the perfect stealth game that we're going to sell for millions of dollars.
Okay, can I start?
You are more than welcome to start, my friend.
Okay,
because I don't want to.
Okay, here's my idea for the start of a stealth game, okay? Let's say that we're transporting you back to an alternate reality 1940s, preferably World War II.
Okay.
And
Nazis are good.
And this is an alternate reality, right?
Okay.
So let's say that the Jews
Russians
fight back, okay? And are actually combating the Nazis with the help of other countries. And Anne Frank became a secret agent almost. And her goal is to stealthily deal with the Nazis. Now,
when you say she became a secret agent almost, are you saying that she failed out of school, or are you just using that as a term?
When I say almost, I mean I want her to have the abilities of a secret agent, but I want her to look like Anne Frank proper.
Okay.
But anyway, you guys tell me how we should what
Okay,
should she
so
attack?
here's the deal. So I like what you're going with. So Anne Frank, trying to be part of this counter war effort with the rest of her people. She tried to get into the whole spy ring, but she failed out. Like she almost made it in, and she didn't. So she has this burning passion that's been denied to her now. So she joins a secret subgroup of Jewish assassins who are going to go about and bring justice. That
can we please call them the Hamakilius or the some playoff like a Jewish term?
I still don't understand how this can work when she's deaf, blind, and dumb.
That's Helen Keller.
Oh, well.
That's racist.
Hey, it was a super stretch fantasy. Maybe in the alternate universe she wasn't deaf, blind, dumb.
You can do that when it gets to your turn.
You knew
1
it
second.
was coming just because of the reference. Who the fuck is Anne Frank anyway?
So Anne Frank in this secret little group of highly trained Jewish assassins goes about doing covert operations and ultimately has to go out from wherever it is that Anne Frank is from, and they go out and they go out to do something. Go.
So there's only like two ways to go with this. Either she's trying to stop some Nazi occult related things because we're going very stereotypical,
Like a
or it's
Wolfenstein.
gonna have something to do with futuristic or nuclear weapons.
You know what? I say you go whichever way you want. This is your decision here. This isn't ours. You just go with what you want. What does your gut tell you?
So we're going to go with the cult, so that way we can mix in Nazis and Nazi zombies.
That sounds good.
Okay, so is it my turn again, or you want to keep going?
No, I think that's where I'm going to leave it at.
Okay, I feel like you're just
trying
putting
to
more
infiltrate an organization, a sect of the Nazis that is working towards occult goals and somehow are creating the perfect soldiers by turning them into zombies.
Okay, I think I know where to go. Okay, so this is what's going to happen, right? So her first mission, she's so excited. She's, has the stars in her eyes. She's like, I am going to finally get them back for what they did.
Stars in her eyes? Are you talking about the stars
Yeah,
of David?
I'm talking about the Star of David. You're absolutely right, I am. Anyway, so she has the Star of David in her eyes, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, my first mission, I'm going to get them back for what they did to me, and how they hurt me and my family and how they hurt all the Jews. And then... Okay, so our first mission.
Wait. Would she even know? Like they know something bad is happening, but would they know exactly what happened?
Hey, this is my part, okay?
Okay,
so
sorry.
shut your face. Anyway, so her first task is to break into a super secret laboratory that's in the heart of Berlin, okay?
Okay.
So she does this amazing job. She sneaks down there. But when she goes to break in, she finds out the door is already open and there's a blood trail leading inside. Next person.
Okay, so...
Wait. For context, which side of the wall is this on?
What's like the blood I put on the floor? If I said wall, I didn't.
No, I meant the Berlin Wall. Is it east or west side?
There is no Berlin Wall. This is alternate universe.
Yeah. Duh.
Whatever's cheaper to develop. This is the financial part of it, okay?
they hired Chinese contractors to build the wall. It's full of garbage.
God damn you, Mongolians!
So young Anne Frank, so full of hope and anger, is invading Berlin and going to sabotage the secret super Nazi zombie creation facility. See, this is already sounding really good. And she arrives to find the blood trail already ahead of her, and she doesn't know what's going on. So she hesitantly follows the blood trail. And this is where you get to develop all these character traits where it's like, she's nervous, but she's got to find out what's going on because that's just, you're developing her character. Like, she could run away right now, but she's so curious. She has to know. She has to see what's going to happen.
And this is a stealth game. What stealth element is she using in order to see? Is it a lamp? Is it a flashlight?
Well, in this alternate reality,
okay, I got this. She has a magical diary that illuminates light.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually a multi-purpose magical diary. It can do anything. Like it's almost like what's a good analogy to this?
Well, she's gonna probably be a silent protagonist, so it probably automatically writes down her thoughts.
I told you she's not dumb.
Just because she's silent doesn't make her dumb. It might make her that would make her mute, not deaf.
Hey, I think it depends how real we want to be here. If we're basing this off real world Jew, then she's got to be chatty.
don't get. You're gonna totally get rid of our listeners that are Jewish.
Sorry, withdrawn.
That's right. You should be ashamed of yourself.
You know what's
That's
gonna
racist.
happen? I'm gonna edit this out, and it's gonna be like, you know what we should do? If she's a real life Jew, redacted, and then it's gonna go back in.
Anyway, so she has this magical multi-purpose, like it's like a focus for her that she can channel her inner magical powers through to get missions done. I feel like that's an adequate contribution.
Yeah, I feel like it is.
I think you just left the description in the middle of the wind. After I dicked you over and asked about, well, how is she seeing in the darkness?
Exactly. You allowed me to add the greatest part to this, which is now we can have Anne Frank's journal,
And
which is going to be
Anne Frank's magical diary.
No, and it's animated. It actually talks to her.
Oh, is it like a Navi?
Yeah, we're getting like near as well.
I wasn't thinking Navi. I'm trying to think of there's some anime and stuff, and they've got grimoires and a bunch of them like talk and stuff. So
you must turn back. No, I can't. I have to go find out what's going on. Anna, it's dangerous. It can be.
I'm concerned for your safety. Let's
Anna, I am very concerned for your safety. You'll need to turn back.
Your book sounds a little bit like Arnold.
It's good. I wanted it to be more of a Henry Kissinger, to be honest.
So it's trying to be diplomatic.
Yeah. Anna, this is a very complicated political situation you are walking into.
And I am your magical
We're not sure we can negotiate with zombies.
The zombies have not yet put forth any of their demands.
Anyway, we're going way off track here. Wait, Eban, it's your turn. You gotta.
Sorry, I'm just really good at derailing.
Yeah, because you don't want to take your turn.
You have to tell us
maybe.
You have to tell us what she finds down there in the basement in this facility in Berlin.
So she continues to go deeper and deeper into the facility, going down stairwells, following this trail of blood, and she comes to a room where it finally opens up, and it's like a cavern.
Okay.
And there are occult symbols everywhere in it, and inside there's a circle, and inside the pentagram on the floor of the circle there's nothing, and she's kind of surprised because the blood trail led all the way up to there, but there's nothing there other than a little bit more blood splatter.
Okay, so it leads to a dead end.
Exactly, or is it?
What happens, Kadamus?
Part of me wants to be like, so she turns around and leaves after finding nothing.
And that's it. That's the end of the game.
We're trying to make a moneymaker here. You can't do that.
Please fund for episode 2.
Yeah, no, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to do typical game fashion, be like, you know what? I need to gather more information, so let's send him on an information fetch quest around the facility first.
You need to collect 6 occultist symbols.
No, you need to figure out how to
corpses.
open the gate. So what she does is she heads back in the lab trying to find a way to open this gate or any notes that would give her an indication of how to do so. But in the process of doing this, she finds out that they were trying to take Nazis who were dying in the war and reanimate them. But they're having some difficulty doing this. And they're like, what are we doing wrong? Obviously, we need Satan. Okay? That's my part.
We've exhausted all resources except for that one.
Yeah, except for magical Satan time.
Evil. It's a growth industry. So she's going to be searching around, hunting for clues, and as she finally gets the gate open, that's when she hears people coming down the stairs behind her and entering into the cavern. Their footsteps, the goose step and echoes throughout the cavern. So she has to run and hide.
Because all Nazis or Germans goose step everywhere they go, not just in parade formation.
Yeah.
This enters a part of the game where she has to be moving from hiding place to hiding place as Nazis pour and filter throughout this large chamber. So she's hiding behind a chair, and then maybe she has to duck and dip and hide behind something else. And she sometimes uses the magic of her diary to create some camouflage or to make a distraction. In doing this, she's finally able to get herself to a point where she hides and she's able to see a big super Nazi, we're going to call it, and they begin to actually.
I'm just totally thinking Temple of Doom.
Yeah, kind of.
That's wrong. I don't think he's got anything to do with this.
So she's hiding thanks to the magic of her diary, and she's able to see that the Nazis have finally gained the last thing that they need to do in order to open up communications with Satan, and that was gather up blank. Go, Goal.
Oh, blank could be anything.
Exactly.
It could even be a door.
It could even be a boat.
They had to gather up enough gold to make a large, giant golden idol.
Okay, giant golden
See?
Satan.
See where we're going with this? Because that's why they were taking and collecting all the gold from everywhere.
That's why
It
they were
wasn't
going
that they
after
were
the
just
Jews.
greedy. It was they needed it.
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting into copyright claim territory here.
Okay, so
Like,
let's
is this
take
gonna
a
be
step
flagged?
back.
No one. When have they ever made a golden statue to Satan?
That's true, I guess.
I think you're safe. Just avoid any Kali Mas.
Ritual sacrifices, piles of corpses, statues made out of skeletons and bones, thrones, gold statue to Satan. Ding.
Yeah. Acceptable.
It's original enough to not be sued. Maybe instead of a statue, maybe it's more of like a device, right? So it's mechanical, but it had to be made out of gold for some reason.
Yeah, because that's how all these rituals are.
I just have this feeling gold has got to be involved somewhere.
No, that's
Okay.
fine. That's good. That's a natural thing.
Okay, is it my turn now?
Sure,
Yes.
because I walked myself into a dead end after that.
Okay, so what you're saying is they have to build a gold statue?
A device.
I'm not even certain. Maybe it's more like something that's more mechanical oriented. So maybe it's used for making sacrifices, or maybe it is just a statue for worship.
No, let's say it's a statue for worship, and you'll see
Okay.
why. So what you find out is that Satan, or whatever, evil deity you want to do.
We already established
Right.
it was Satan.
Okay, so
Why,
it's
why
Satan.
can't it be Cthulhu?
Mm,
That's what you'll say.
Cthulhu doesn't get involved with Nazis.
yeah. Anyway, so Satan,
I'm Cthulhu.
what you find out is that they made a pact with Satan, right?
Sorry. My Cthulhu.
Hey, he gets involved with mimes. It's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going like for the German, like mine, like instead of like Mein Kampf. I thought that's when you said Mein Thulu. I was
Mein
like,
Thulu. We are here
Mein
to worship
Thulu.
you.
You know what? We're going to go with it. Instead of Satan, it's Mein Thulu. Anyway,
it's
what you
the
find
Hitler
out.
version of Cthulhu.
Yes.
You better put something up there showing specifically how it's spelled, so there's no confusion.
Okay, well, damn it. Why do you keep making more work for me? Anyway,
You could
so
have
what
just
they do
spelled
is,
it right now.
Shh, 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 shh. So what you find out is that Mein Thulu was requiring gold to build what was the equivalent of Nazi zombie robots. Okay, so they take the dead Hitler soldiers.
Okay.
And what they does is he puts their soul into a mechanical body to fight the war again.
Okay. So this is kind of going into like Dragon Age, where they're making the golems.
Yeah, so this basically you're having Nazi soldier golems.
Okay.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is just crossing a bunch of different things that are just popping into my head.
See, no, that's
It's like,
good. I'm trying to help
I think
you.
this might have happened here, here,
So-
here.
So Anne Frank has to watch in horror as the ritual with Mein Thulu empowers the Nazis to begin creating their golden Nazi golem soldier robots. Now, there's so many different ways that she could maybe get out of the situation to escape and get back to her friends, but she knows deep down that the only thing that she can really do is to stop things here and now. So she desperately flips through the pages of her magical diary, going all the way to the back where she keeps her biggest, most powerfulest spells. And she begins to read backwards in Hebrew as she goes through the most powerful spell in the back. And it does something. Gogol.
You realize that you just did a Deus Ex Machina, right?
I do it. No, I didn't say it has to end here.
Okay, but that's kind of a Deus Ex Machina kind of.
No, this is the idea. Is maybe she where I'm trying to go. I'm trying to set this up here. But I guess I could just keep going with it.
Yeah,
But
just
it's
keep
like,
going with
she-
it. If you,
this
I
was
was
something
saying,
we're
you
gonna
left
ruin
me in a
it.
place where it's like I could totally think it one way or the other, and
Okay, so
neither way ends well.
we're gonna flash back a little bit. Flashback to when young Anna was training and they were teaching her all about
Rewind like 10 seconds.
yeah, when they were teaching her about all the different stuff. And the reason she got rejected is because she kept wanting to use the most powerful spells before she was ready. And they kept saying, and they said, you're too crazy, Anna. You're a wild cannon. You're just gonna we can't have you on the team. And that's why she never got in. It's because she was always ready to use that big powerful spell, and she always believed that they were too much of a coward to use it. So now we flash forward. Then she's looking at the back of the book and she's like, I'm gonna do it. It's the only way. And so she casts the spell, which is like a dimension rift tearing spell, and it brings all of the Nazis and her to modern day this dimension existence.
Golagres. I don't
Green
feel I
cuts to
have to
black.
tell you. I feel like I don't have to tell you this because you might already be thinking it. I hope you are. You could totally go Drakengard final ending right now. Okay?
I was not thinking it.
You could totally go Drakengard right here.
Oh, that ending is just lost on too many people.
I know. Such a good game, and not many people ever played it.
What was the sequel or semi-sequel, the connected game
Nier?
to it? Nier. I still never played it.
I'm chuckling because I've actually never played it, so I have no idea. The reference is.
You've never played Drakengard or Nier?
Okay, should I go through
Either.
the quick reference quickly?
Yeah, go through it quick. Go.
Okay, so here's the idea. In one of the endings, you play in this feudal society with dragons and all these evil creatures controlling humans and humans battling each other for control. Whatever. Really what happens at the end of it is there's this cataclysmic event, and you decide to try and stop it. Well, in the way of stopping it, you get transported to modern-day Japan. Okay? Our dimension. And you fight this end boss that's nearly impossible to beat without cheat codes or knowledge of her movement. Once you beat her, then the Japanese Air Force shoots you and kills you. Okay, after you beat this giant monster.
So, taking out of context, it was such a beautiful, wonderful ending for a game that had so many dark and fucked up endings.
Yes.
Like, how many endings are there to that game? I'm gonna
There are
say
5.
Like, is there 5? I was gonna say 6, and I was like, no, and I'm gonna be completely wrong, but I'm going with 6.
Okay, so real quick, I'm going to recap for us. And so Anne Frank, after having trained for years to get into the secret Jewish spy/assassination group, gets turned down because she's just too reckless and wants to use all the powerful spells. She does join a secret group, though, that's willing to take her in. She sneaks into a secret facility where they're making giant Nazi zombie things.
Robots.
Well, she doesn't know it's robots at the time, so she sneaks in. And as she sneaks in and doesn't find anything, she gathers clues to find out what's going on, and she discovers the plans for contacting Mind Thulu to create these giant golden Nazi golem things. So they sneak in, she evades them, the ritual starts to happen, and she decides in her reckless behavior that she needs to stop it, tearing all of the people present in the cavern into modern-day Berlin. And now it falls on Anna to set things right, because now those golden Nazi golems are now running amok in something.
So now you had a really good lead up, and I just don't know where to go with that. We're at bed in this entire discussion.
Actually, we probably should let's not make it modern day. It should just be back. It should be 1945, but just set to this actual dimension.
So she ends her most awesome spell wasn't something that would kill everything, but instead just suck them into another dimension, which happens to be our timeline.
Yeah, she just didn't understand it. She thought she knew what the spell was going to do, but because she didn't spend the time to study it, like all of her mentors told her,
she awakens in an unfamiliar area, not sure exactly where she is, and she starts wandering the streets, and she finds a newspaper, and she reads the newspaper, and it talks about the end of the war, and the Germans have won. And it's like they convinced the United States to sign a release ending the war and giving up, and now Germany controls the United Kingdom and down through Africa and
because
all these and partway into Russia. So the only faction still remaining now is the United States is mostly untouched, except that they've lost Hawaii, and that you have Japan having majority control of China, and Russia shrunk down to just what would be modern day Russia. They don't control anything else beyond that. And then you got the Germans controlling all of basically Europe.
So they've lost the Mind Thulu connection, but they still had the golden Nazi golems.
Well, see, this is the assumption, is that she woke up, and that event happening, her bringing them to this thing, changed the history of that timeline because it came at such a crucial time and gave them these soldiers they needed to win.
Oh, so you're saying she kind of blanks out for a while and wakes up sometime after?
Correct. So it's months.
That's
after.
good.
So it would have happened. I don't know what an exact date would be. That would be a crucial turning point during the war. So let's say it happened during D-Day, and instead it stopped the D-Day invasion and ended up being a disaster for the Allies. And as a reaction to that, they lost Europe, and the war looks like it's winding down to a close.
Okay, so Kadamus, we got to start wrapping this up. This game's getting too long.
Yeah, this game's getting too long. So she decides.
Sequel starts there.
No, she decides that she messed up. She didn't listen to her elders. So what she does is she realizes that the whole point of this happening to her, she realizes she has to own up to her failings and to this mistake. And that the only thing she can do now is use her good old magical diary and stealth shit and just kill Hitler to scatter his forces so the balance can be retained.
Oh, so it's the big final mission now where she has to go and sneak into the new Mecca Berlin fortress that has now been bolstered up.
Yes, so the goal is she decides
Hitler.
That by killing Hitler, she can decimate the forces and lose enough control over the forces so that way the other people can regain balance in the world.
I like it.
Ready, set, finish it up.
So Anne Frank, as she approaches the Mecca fortress, with the golden Nazi zombie golems patrolling the perimeters, has to use all sorts of tricks with her magical diary. And while she sneaks, she's always hesitant to use those more powerful abilities. So you actually lock out some of the higher level abilities because now she's refusing to use it. And this will frustrate a lot of players, and it's great.
Yeah.
I was thinking go on the lines of, if she uses them, she's afraid she might black out again, and then, game over.
or every time, better yet, okay, so let's not lock out the player because that would be terrible. Instead,
it was brilliant.
Instead, every time she uses a higher level ability, she has like this flashback that just pops up like oh no, you're a failure. Or maybe there's some other effect, like she gets stunned for a second because it's like she's having trouble dealing with it. But anyway, so Anne Frank, using her magical diary, scales up the big tower leading up to Hitler's room, and there she has a showdown with Hitler, who's actually pretty easy to kill.
But he's not the real last boss, so he's pretty easy to kill him, and then you have to fight Mein Dulu.
Yeah, well, so that this whole build up now, you kill Hitler, and it's like, was it worth it? Did you redeem yourself? And then you just realized as you pilfer his room, you find the notes that he's transferred power over to somebody else, and that sets up the sequel.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then see.
And that was not bad for coming up with it. Slightly racist. But,
and I think on the fly, we could probably make a couple million with that.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Anne Frank's magical diary is going to be key.
Yeah, it's going to be the next big gameplay mechanic.
Yeah, I mean, magical diaries are they're underutilized.
I think this game would probably do fairly well in Japan.
What doesn't do well in Japan?
A lot of things. Final Fantasy games? Hey-yo!
NASCAR games?
You guys are so funny.
Hey-yo!
Anyway, we hope that amused you.
Fantasy
If not, we apologize. Actually, not really.
Yeah, we really
it's your own
don't
fault for listening to us.
Very unapologetic.
But we do appreciate you tuning in, and we're going to keep experimenting with things. So come back in next time, and who knows what we'll have? Some other fun
experiment. It might be
experiment.
completely different by then.
Yeah. So thank you again for listening, and this has been the Alpha Build Podcast with Gorlock, and Kadamus, and we appreciate you tuning in. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.